My father ignored me my whole childhood for his stepdaughter. He gave her a $12,000 car while I worked for mine. Now she's homeless and he demands I take her in. But my answer left them speechless. I'm 21 years old. I'm in my third year of college studying business administration. And honestly, I need to get this off my chest because what happened a few weeks ago basically confirmed something I've known for years. To my family, I was never enough. And you know what? I'm okay with that now. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was like 7 years old and my parents got divorced. I don't remember much about that, honestly, just that suddenly mom and dad weren't living together anymore, and I had to spend weekends with mom and the rest of the time with dad. It was weird at first. Like, I missed mom during the week, but eventually you get used to it, you know? I thought things were going to be normal. Or, well, as normal as possible considering my parents weren't together anymore. But then, literally 3 months after the divorce, Dad met Christine. I mean, I don't know if he met her after, or if he already knew her before and that was the reason for the divorce. They never told me, and honestly, I don't care anymore. But the point is, suddenly there was this new woman in the house and she came with her own daughter, Brittany, or Britt as everyone called her. Britt was my age, also 7. And from the moment I met her, I knew things were going to change, but I had no idea how much. At first, Dad tried to act like everything was great. Like, look, Ava, now you have a sister. Isn't that exciting? And I tried. I really did. Because I wanted Dad to be happy. But Britt was. I don't know how to explain it without sounding mean, but she was spoiled, you know? One of those girls who are used to everything revolving around them. The first thing I noticed was that Dad started to change with me. Before the divorce, or even right after, Dad and I had our routine. He drove me to school. We watched movies on Saturdays when I wasn't with Mom, things like that. But when Christine and Britt moved in, all of that disappeared. Suddenly, Dad only had eyes for Britt. He drove her to school. Every morning in his truck, a blue Ford F-150 that he loved, while he told me that the school bus was perfectly functional and that I needed to learn to be independent. I was 8 years old, for God's sake. I would watch through the window as they got in the car together, laughing about something, and I had to wait for the bus alone on the corner. Sometimes it rained and I'd arrive at school soaking wet. But what really showed me how things were going to be was my 10th birthday. Britt had turned 10 like 2 months earlier and Dad had thrown her this huge party. Like, he rented a bounce house, hired a clown, even though we were already too old for that, but whatever. Invited her whole class. There were like 40 kids there. A 3-tier cake with Disney princesses because Britt loved Frozen, and Dad easily spent like $2,000 on that party. I remember being there watching everything, helping serve pizza because Christine said it would be nice if I participated. And I thought, well, it's my birthday, I'm going to have something like this too, right? Well, no. My birthday came. It was a Saturday, and Dad didn't even remember it. Literally. I woke up that morning expecting maybe a special breakfast or something, and Dad was watching football in the living room. I told him, Dad, it's my birthday. And he froze for like 2 seconds and then said, oh, happy birthday, sweetie, and gave me a quick hug, but I could see in his eyes that he had completely forgotten. Christine gave me a card with $20 inside. I think she pulled them out of her wallet right then. And Britt didn't even say happy birthday to me because she was upset about something I don't remember what it was. There was no party. There was no cake. Mom took me to dinner at an Applebee's that weekend when I went to her house. And that was it. I remember crying that night in my room, silently because I didn't want Dad to hear me. And I thought, what did I do wrong? Why is Britt so special? And I'm not. And that question basically defined the next years of my life. Things only got worse over time. Britt could do whatever she wanted and there were never consequences. She stole my clothes, my makeup when I started wearing it around 13, my books, everything. One time she took my iPod. This was like in 2016. They still existed. That I had saved for months to buy with my birthday and Christmas money. And she lost it at school. When I told Dad, he just said, these things happen, Ava. Don't be so materialistic. Materialistic. I had worked mowing neighbors' lawns all summer to save that money. I was like 14 years old. But Britt comes along, loses it, and nothing happens. Dad bought her a new iPhone like a week later, an iPhone 7 that cost like $700. While I was still without my iPod, food was another issue. Christine cooked things Britt liked. Always. Britt didn't like broccoli, so there was never broccoli. Britt loved Christine's lasagna, so we ate lasagna twice a week. I liked the orange chicken that Mom made. I mentioned it once and Christine said it sounded too complicated and never made it. I know it sounds like a small thing, but when you live like that every day, all these little things add up. You know what I mean? You realize you don't matter, that your preferences don't count, that you're basically invisible in your own house. The breaking point started when I turned 16. I decided I needed to get out of that house as much as possible, so I got a job at a Starbucks near school. I worked after school and on weekends when I wasn't with Mom. The money wasn't much, like $9 an hour, but it was mine. I started saving because I had a plan. I wanted to buy my own car. Dad had bought Britt a used 2016 Honda Civic, but in good condition. When she turned 16, he paid cash, like $12,000. When I turned 16, Dad told me that if I wanted a car, I'd have to buy it myself, because he had already spent a lot on Britt and it wasn't fair for me to expect the same. It wasn't fair. Let that sink in for a moment. So I saved for almost a year, working every shift I could, not buying new clothes, not going out with friends, nothing. Mom saw how hard I was working and offered to help me with part of it. Between the two of us, we put together like $8,000 and bought a 2010 Toyota Corolla. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was mine. I had paid for it. Well, Mom and I felt incredible. Finally, I had something that was just mine. Something that Dad couldn't say was courtesy of him. But Britt, of course, couldn't leave things like that. About 6 months after I bought my car, she crashed hers. It wasn't anything serious, let's say, but the Civic was damaged enough to be in the shop for 2 weeks. And Britt, being Britt, expected me to lend her my car. She came to my room one day after school, didn't even knock on the door, just walked in and said, "Hey, I'm going to need your car tomorrow because mine is still in the shop." It wasn't a question, it was a statement, like it was already decided. I told her no, that I also needed my car to go to work, and she freaked out, like yelling that I was selfish, that sisters help each other. All that crap. I told her that she had never helped me with anything in her entire life, so why the hell should I help her now? Britt went crying to Dad, obviously, and Dad came to my room that night with his disappointed face. You know, the one that makes you feel like 2 inches tall. He told me I was being selfish. That word again, that it was only for 2 weeks, that Britt needed to get to school and her extracurricular activities. I reminded him there was a bus, that I had taken it for years without complaining. But Dad said that was different, that Britt had volleyball practice after school and the bus didn't work for her. I asked him why he couldn't drive her, and he told me he worked late and couldn't be dealing with that. I mean, he could drive her to school in the mornings when I was 8 years old, but he couldn't pick her up at 17. Makes sense, right? I held out those 2 weeks saying no. It was exhausting because every day was the same conversation. Britt asking me for the car, me saying no, her throwing a tantrum, Dad and Christine making me feel like the worst person in the world. But I held my ground because I knew that if I gave in once, it was going to become the norm. Britt was going to think my car was basically hers too. Then came the day Britt's Civic came out of the shop. I thought, thank God, this is over. But 2 days later, I came home after work. It was like 9 at night. I was exhausted. It had been a horrible shift at Starbucks with 1,000 rude customers, and my car wasn't there. It literally wasn't in the garage where I had left it that morning. I went into the house, and Christine was watching TV. I asked her where my car was, and she, without even turning to look at me, said, "Oh, Britt borrowed it. She needed to go to the movies with her friends." I just stood there, like an idiot trying to process what I had just heard. I asked her if she had given Britt permission to take my car without asking me, and Christine shrugged and said, "You two are sisters. It's okay to share." I told her no. It wasn't okay. That it was my car that I had paid for. But Christine just ignored me. I called Britt like 15 times, but she didn't answer. I called Dad, and he didn't answer either because he was at a business dinner or something. Britt came home at like 2 inches the morning. I was awake waiting for her. I couldn't sleep from the anger, and when I heard her arrive, I got up and went to talk to her. But when I went outside, I saw my car and I almost had a heart attack. The right side was completely scratched. Like, not just a small scratch, but scratched. Like it had scraped against something. The front bumper was dented. The light on the right side was broken. I ran out and Britt was standing there looking at me like she was the victim. I asked her what happened and she said, in the most casual tone in the world, that she had a little accident in the movie theater parking lot, that someone had left one of those concrete barriers too close and she didn't see it when backing up. I asked her why she didn't call me and she said she didn't want to ruin my night. My night. As if my night wasn't already ruined because she had stolen my car. I told her she was going to have to pay for the damages, and she laughed. Literally laughed in my face, and said, "Yeah, right," as if I had money for that. Then I told her that Dad would have to pay because she was responsible for the damage, and Britt just said, "Well, good luck with that," and went into the house. I stood there in the driveway looking at my destroyed car, the car that had taken me a year of work to buy, and I started crying. I couldn't control it. All that year working, all that effort, and Britt had destroyed it in one night, and she didn't even care. The next morning I talked to Dad. I showed him the car, explained what happened, hoping that for once he would see how unfair all this was, that for once he would support me. But Dad looked at me and said, "Well, if you had lent her the car when she asked you a few weeks ago, this wouldn't have happened. You know, Britt isn't very good at driving and yours is bigger than hers. It's harder to maneuver." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was blaming me. He told me I was selfish, that if I had been more generous and shared from the beginning, Britt would have practiced with my car and this wouldn't have happened. The logic of that argument made no sense, but Dad had already decided it in his head. I asked him who was going to pay for the repair, and Dad sighed like I was being super dramatic and said he didn't have the money for that right now, that he had spent a lot on Britt's Civic and other house things. He offered me like $200 for me to cover the rest. The shop estimate was $2,800. I had like 400 inches. Savings, because everything else I had spent on the car. Mom ended up paying $1,500, and I paid the rest, working double shifts for 2 months. Dad never gave me another cent. Britt never apologized, never offered to help with anything. And it was at that moment, looking at my repaired car but knowing it had cost me all my money to fix something that wasn't my fault, that I decided that as soon as I turned 18, I was going to leave that house and never talk to any of them again. I was 17 when the car thing happened. I had less than a year until my birthday. But I didn't last that long. About 3 months later, Dad and I had another fight. I don't even remember exactly why. I think it was because Britt had used my laptop without permission and had installed some virus downloading illegal stuff or something, and Dad again defended Britt, saying I was exaggerating, and I just exploded. I yelled at him, everything I had been holding in for years, told him he was the worst father in the world, that he had always preferred Britt over me, that I had never mattered to him at all. Dad yelled at me that I was ungrateful, that he had given me a roof over my head and food. As if that was enough. As if that was all a father has to do. I called Mom crying that night and told her I couldn't take it anymore, that I needed to leave. Mom came the next day, it was a weekend, and helped me pack all my stuff. I didn't have much, honestly, a couple of suitcases with clothes, my laptop, some books, my personal things. Dad didn't even come out of his room when I left. Christine was there watching me from the kitchen door but didn't say anything. Britt was at a friend's house. And just like that, without more, I left. I finished high school living with Mom, and honestly, those last months were the best of my adolescence because I could finally breathe. You know, finally I didn't have to walk on eggshells all the time. I graduated, got into college in a city like 3 hours from where Dad lived, got a small apartment with a roommate, started working part-time at a campus coffee shop, and my life finally felt like mine. I didn't talk to Dad, or Christine, or Britt. Mom would ask me sometimes if I didn't want to at least try to fix things with Dad, but I told her no, that there was nothing to fix, that he had chosen years ago, and I was choosing now too. 5 years went by. 5 years, without hearing anything from them. Not a call on my birthday, not a message at Christmas, nothing. And I was okay with that. I had done therapy at college. The student health center offers like 10 free sessions per semester, and I took advantage of all of them. I had worked on accepting that my relationship with Dad was never going to be what I wanted it to be when I was a kid. I had found friends who were more family to me than my own family. Things were good. Until 3 weeks ago. I was studying for a corporate finance exam. It was like 8 at night on a Tuesday, when my phone rang. Unknown number. But from the area where Dad lived. I almost didn't answer, but something made me answer. It was Britt. I hadn't heard from her in 5 years, and there she was, like nothing. "Hi, Ava. It's Britt." And I was silent because I didn't know what to say. Literally, my brain shut down for 2 seconds. Britt kept talking, said she needed to ask me a favor, that things were difficult for her right now and she needed a place to stay for a while. I asked her what happened, and she told me this super long story about how she had problems with her roommate, something about not paying rent on time and they got kicked out, and that Christine and Dad couldn't help her now because they had money problems or something. I wasn't paying much attention, honestly, because I was in shock that she was calling me after 5 years like nothing. And then Britt said, "So, I was thinking maybe I can stay with you for a few months, just until I find a job and can get my own place. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. I'd help, with cleaning and stuff." I asked her if she was serious and she said yes, that we were sisters and sisters help each other. That phrase. The same phrase she had used to justify stealing my car. Sisters help each other. And something in me broke. But not in the sad way, but in the way where you finally have absolute clarity. I told her, "Britt, you and I are not sisters. We never were. You never treated me like a sister. Dad never treated me like we were equals. And now that you need something, you come asking me for help as if the last 5 years hadn't happened, as if my whole childhood hadn't happened." The answer is no. Britt was quiet for like 3 seconds and then started getting hysterical, saying I was horrible, that she had never done anything bad to me, that I was remembering things wrong, that we were kids and kids fight, but that doesn't mean she was mean to me. I reminded her about the car and she said, "God, Ava, that was years ago. Get over it. Get over it." As if it had been something insignificant. I told her I wasn't going to change my mind, and she yelled something at me. I didn't understand, and hung up. I thought that was it, but 2 days later Dad called. And from the moment I answered, I knew it was going to be a horrible conversation because his tone already came loaded with that contained anger he always had with me. He told me that Britt had told him I refused to help her, that he was very disappointed in me, that how could I be so cruel to my own sister when she was going through a difficult time. I told him that Britt wasn't my sister. Not really, not after everything that happened. And Dad said I was ridiculous, that I was clinging to things from the past that weren't even that serious. All those times he ignored me. All those times he chose Britt over me. All those times he made me feel invisible in my own house. Weren't serious. I asked him if he remembered my 10th birthday, and he was quiet. Remember it. I told him I did remember it, that I remembered every time he had made me feel like I didn't matter, and that I didn't owe anything to him or Britt. Dad started yelling, telling me I was selfish. That word again. That he had raised me. That he had paid for my food and clothes for years, even though we know Mom also contributed with child support, but whatever. And that the least I could do was help Britt now. I told him, "You know what, Dad? I'm tired. Tired of you expecting me to be generous with people who were never generous with me. Tired of you calling me selfish for having boundaries. Tired of this conversation." And I hung up. I literally hung up the phone while he was still talking and blocked his number. My hands were shaking, but I also felt liberated, like I had finally done something I should have done years ago. I thought that closed the chapter, but turns out Dad called Mom, and Mom called me yesterday. And this was the part that hurt the most, honestly, because I expected Mom to understand me, for Mom to be on my side because she had seen how Dad treated me. She had paid to fix my car when Dad didn't. She had given me a place to live when Dad let me leave without saying a word. But Mom told me that maybe I was being too hard, that yes, Dad hadn't been perfect, but nobody is perfect, that Britt had been a kid too, and kids make mistakes, that maybe it would be good for me to let go of the resentment and help Britt. I asked her why the hell she thought I owed Britt anything, and Mom said it wasn't about owing but about being a good person, about being the bigger person in the situation. I told her I had been the bigger person my entire childhood, putting up with things I shouldn't have put up with, and that now I didn't have to be anymore. Mom sighed and said I was being stubborn, that sometimes you have to make sacrifices for family, that she didn't raise me to be so closed off. And that broke my heart, because Mom had always been my safe person, my escape place, and now she was also on their side. I told her, "Mom, if you want to help Britt, go ahead. You can let her stay with you. but I'm not going to do it. And Mom said it wasn't the same. That Britt didn't have a relationship with her, that I was the obvious connection. I told her that wasn't my problem, and Mom got angry, told me I had changed, that college had made me colder, that I needed to think about what I was doing. Then I told her something I know hurt her, but I needed to say. I told her that if she wanted to continue having a relationship with me, she needed to respect my decisions and stop pressuring me to do things I don't want to do. Mom was quiet for like 10 seconds and then said, "Okay, Ava, if that's how you want things to be," and hung up. We haven't talked since then. It's weird because Mom and I had talked like every 2 days for the last 5 years, and now, nothing. It's part of me feels guilty. Like maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I am. Selfish, like everyone says. But another part of me, the part that has been going to therapy, the part that has been working on setting healthy boundaries, knows I did the right thing. I don't owe Britt anything. I don't owe Dad anything. And I don't owe anyone sacrificing my peace of mind just because they think it's what I should do. Yesterday was my birthday. I turned 22. Dad called. I don't know how he got my new number because I had blocked the old one. Maybe Mom gave it to him. I answered because I thought, I don't know. Maybe he's going to apologize. Maybe he's going to congratulate me without all the drama. But no. He congratulated me quickly and then started again with the Brit thing, saying she really needed help, that she was sleeping on a friend's couch and that couldn't continue like that I had an apartment with space and it wouldn't cost me anything to let her stay. I told him I wasn't going to change my mind, and he said that someday I was going to need help and nobody was going to be there for me. And I hung up again. And here I am, sitting in my apartment that I paid for with my work, surrounded by friends I chose, living a life I built myself, and feeling good. I miss Mom. I'm not going to lie, but I don't miss the drama. I don't miss feeling guilty all the time. I don't miss having to justify my decisions to people who never respected theirs toward me. I've been thinking a lot about all this, and I think I finally understood something. I spent my whole childhood trying to earn Dad's love, trying to be good enough for him to see me, for him to choose me even just once. And it never happened. And that wasn't my fault. I was a kid. I had no control over how he decided to be a father. But now I'm an adult, and I do have control over who's in my life and how they treat me. And I chose people who value me, who respect me, who don't come looking for me only when they need something. After years of silence, I don't know if I'm being selfish or if I'm just taking care of myself for the first time in my life. Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's okay to be a little selfish when your whole life people asked you to sacrifice yourself for people who never did the same for you.